Hello students, I am Professor Monica Prakash from Indian Institute of Tourism and Travel Management, your instructor for this module. Welcome back to the course on Destination Management. We bring this course to you as a part of e-Pathshala initiative of the Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India to make postgraduate education accessible to all. In this module, we will talk about the management of crisis at a destination. After completing this module, you will be able to understand the needs of developing excellent crisis management skills, the various factors affecting the tourism destination during the crisis, the various aspects of crisis, which are the nature and the characteristic and its type, and how to manage a crisis and its various strategies. You will also be better placed to aid in your portrayal among your understanding towards the tourism sector and its vulnerability. Tourism, we all know, is a growing business, and this has a far-reaching impact on the economic and the environmental across the world. Even though we all have been travelers at some points in our lives, yet defining tourism could be tough. Tourism is the action of individuals wandering to and hanging around at different locations in distinctive environments for vacation, professional and other reasons for not more than a single successive year. The activity of touring, particularly for desire, it is the promotion of tourist travel, especially for commercial purposes. According to UNWTO, the tourism comprises the activities of persons traveling to and staying in places outside their usual settings for not more than one consecutive year for leisure, business and other purposes. It has therefore become a significant segment and that has a bearing impact on the expansion of nations' progress. The first assistant of this service sector are that it aids in creation and generation of jobs and income for millions of people in every part of the world. All of such employment and revenue are created just by utilizing the natural resources present in a country. The government needs not deploy any financial assistance in harnessing such untapped natural resources. For various provinces and republics, it is the most important basis of well-being. The important aids of the tourism are financial, conservational and socio-cultural. Financial welfare. It provides jobs to a large community such as the trip attendants or guest household work. This results in the creation of indirect employment for other industries as well as for the food production, farming, gardening, husbandry and retail. The travel industry is seen as a system to boost the gross domestic product of countries and thereby reducing the dependence on assistance and credits. Intercontinental tourism is occasionally perceived as a valuable approach for several interior nations who dearth an individual base and are over-reliant on primary, that is the farmed exports. Nowadays, the commercial capacity of the tourism equals or even exceeds that of the food products, automobiles and oil exports. The landscape of the tourism and service sector is evolving and it necessitates persistent evaluation to persist the viable commerce. The crucial aspects that have determined transformation in the industry contain socio-cultural, economic, environment and the technological forces. There are some factors that directly or indirectly affect the tourism and its management in the industry. Factors like environmental conditions, historical or cultural importance, economy, religious importance of the country predominantly affects the overall tourism sector in the different magnitudes and direction. Such factors are regarded as the conventional factors that have its influence on tourism sector since its professionalization. However, due to increased connectivity, technology has also become one of the factors which affects the tourism activities in number of ways. Nowadays, the travelers share their experiences on the internet, which works as a guiding principle for the subsequent visitors. Hence, just like a two-edged sword, the internet can increase as well as decrease the business of the whole industry. Have a look at the graphic on your screen. Environmental factors are one of the most important powerful aspects that impose a serious threat in the suitability of the tourism from a global perspective. Tourist places are gradually confronted by ecological calamities brought by natural events such as typhoons, floods, volcanoes, earthquakes, droughts, etc. Therefore, it has become necessary to have a certain preventive measures or guidelines to make tourism more sustainable in the long run. This terminology of making tourism more sustainable by making the organizations and the people in tourism sector competent of handling a situation marked up by any natural human-made disasters is termed as the word crisis management. But what is crisis? The term of crisis is presently well acknowledged in the tourism management. This is an event or a set of situations which can severely compromise or damage the marketability and the reputation of the business and its brand or the entire tourism of a destination region. The crisis is an unexpected and unforeseen incident leading to the foremost turbulence amid the people. In other words, it can also be defined as a state of emergency which disrupts the people and the result into the volatility of the sector or environment. The crisis affects a specific person, group, association or society on the whole. Accordingly, a crisis is characterized by a surprise, high threat to critical values and a short, decisive time. From the above sources of discussions, we could relate that crisis consists of the following specific characteristics. A. It is an order of sudden alarming events damaging the tourism sector. 2. It usually ascends on a short notice. Third, it prompts a sense of distress, threat and fear among the individuals. There also exist three existential effects of crisis by menacing the validity of a business industry sector, forcing the industry to get back to their premeditated missions and distressing the people outlook towards the world and themselves. A crisis can arise as an outcome of an unusual events or as an unanticipated consequences of some affairs that had been regarded as the probable hazards. In either case, the crisis almost perpetually necessitates that choice be made rapidly to edge the damage to the business of the tourism and hospitality sector. For that purposes, organization must understand how to entail the effects caused due to the erratic occurrence of an event which is termed as the word called crisis. Therefore, there is a need to understand the aspects of crisis management which would aid in proper pre- and post-crisis management. What are the types of crisis? Various studies and research have conducted by the authors and the scholars regarding the types of crisis and found that crisis be of any type considers its velocity and implications. It also pointed out the different 8 types of crisis, namely the natural, technological, confrontation, malevolence, workplace violence, organizational misdeeds, rumors, terrorist attacks or human-made crisis. However, from the perspective of tourism industry, it could be broadly classified into 2 categories. 1. The crisis which is not predictable at all. The management has no governance over such crisis and therefore the administration could not take control it on the either ways. For example, the natural disasters, wars or terrorism, political disturbances, law-breaking waves, epidemics and the unexpected universal economic recessions. The second type of a crisis is what can be predictable. Such type of crisis results from the failure or the management in the regular dealing and the administrative works, which also leads because of the lack of possible measures that are being taken and adopted by the management to deal with it. Example, inappropriate strategic management, equipment or service failures, massive turnover of staff, financial fraud, business collapse due to management failure, the reputation of the firm, the loss of data, the destruction of a place of business due to fire, flood without insurance coverage or the proper backup measures. So what is crisis management? This is the art of dealing with the hasty and the surprising happenings which bother the personnel, organization as well as the peripheral consumers refers to the crisis management. It is a process of managing the unexpected changes in the values perceived by the tourist. Crisis management is the process by which an organization deals with the disturbing and unforeseen events that threatens to harm the organization, its stakeholders or the general public at large. Crisis management is the application of the approaches premeditated to help an organization deal with an unexpected and momentous adverse environments. Why is there a need for crisis management? There are certain reasons to understand the needs of the crisis management. The first, The crisis management prepares the personnel and the organization to face the unexpected changes and contrary circumstances in the tourism sectors by the application of methodological principles. The second, it empowers the people associated with the business of service sectors to adjust well to the sudden changes in the organization. The third, workers can comprehend and scrutinize the grounds of crisis and survive with it in the best conceivable way. The fourth, the crisis management assists the managers to formulate tactics to come out of ambiguous circumstances and also choose on the upcoming progression of action. The fifth, it enables the executives to sense the early symbols of crisis, inform the workforce in contrast to the repercussions and take necessary safety measures for the same. Talking about the essential features of the crisis management, the few of them are as listed below. A, the management of crisis comprises the actions and the procedures which support the executive as well as the staff to evaluate and comprehend events which might lead to calamity and crisis. The B, crisis management enables the bosses and the personnel to answer effectively to changes in the environmental culture. The C, it entails operative harmonization among the value chain to overcome the emergency state of affairs. D, personnel and the tourist at the same time of the crisis must communicate efficiently with one another and must try their level best to overcome hard periods. However, there are some points guidelines that every tourist people should keep in mind at the time of any particular crisis. For example, be patient. Don't panic or spread rumors around. At the time of crisis, the higher authorities should be in regular touch with the lower level officers and data centers to monitor the overall situation and to keep a control over it. Do not be too inflexible. One should adjust well to the variations and the new condition. Crisis management also has certain strategies which can be undertaken to manage a crisis or a disaster that have been discussed by the various authorities concerning tour guiding, yet there are no standardized principles of the same. Herrero and Pratt indicated different phases to manage the crisis. This includes diagnosis of the awaiting problem, choosing appropriate strategy and implementation of the chosen strategy by monitoring it. James in 2009 argued that crisis is an unanticipated situation, hence a powerful leader is required to handle such distress situation. He identified 5 leadership roles which act as competencies facilitating the overall restructuring and remodeling of the culture during and after the crisis. According to James, a leader should be able to have a facilitation, a sense of trust even and after the crisis situations by reforming the mindset of people. Having a look at the graphic of your screen, you would see to it that he further suggested to define the reason of crisis and making correcting decisions as a strategy as similar as proposed by Herrero and Pratt in their model. However, James also argued that a leader should learn from the crisis to effect change. Leading from such contingent situation is considered as a crucial aspect of James' model, which every leader should duly recognize. James' crisis leadership model is now on your screen. Apart from the above 2 models, there were some other theories and conceptions regarding the management of the crisis in an efficient manner. Many thinkers imposed their ideologies and intellect in defining principles about tour guiding crisis management. However, they all varied in different contexts and did not possess uniformity. Considering the above example, Cato, Council of Australian Tour Operators in 2016 have defined 7 critical aspects in all situations that would be undertaken by the administration. Now these include identify, analyze, plan, track, control, treat and communicate. By employing these 7 aspects, the people could not only overcome such contingent situation but also be able to foresee any crisis or risk upcoming shortly. Cato's model of crisis management is now on your screen. Pata in the year 2003 introduced the concept of 4R of a crisis management in a crisis awareness document as crisis, it won't happen to us. Expect the unexpected, be prepared. Pata's 4Rs, a model is now on your screen. The first is the reduction. Identification of possible disaster and looking for or ways, a means to lessen its impact. Not every disaster can be prevented, but it could be predicted, and which would result in the development of pre-safety measures to reduce the possible damage caused by such events. Prevention capabilities, being able to avert an event from happening, are in a constant state of progress as more have learned about the disaster etiology. It is hence considering the technology, particularly on the climatological system and climate tracing momentous, recovers the competencies in avoiding any disaster or situation alike. Enhanced nationwide and the native safety systems empower the targeted stoppage of artificial disasters, such as the acts of terrorism, acts of bombing, hijacking, or that have influenced the manifestation of subsequent events. This is the phase in which there has been a full valuation of harm or loss, or there is a necessity to put in the place at retrieval coalition. In the case of place which has experienced a crisis event, this retrieval coalition may encompass the government control and an association of all related sectors of the tourism business. Organization also needs to make a SWOT analysis on their corporate or destination, which measures strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It is therefore imperative to counsel likely visitors or clients that the destination is still functional and hospitalities, guests and customer. The two is the readiness or the risk preparedness. The next stage and the phase in crisis management is the preparedness. Chance favors the prepared mind, says the Louis Pasteur. Organization must also have a contingency plan ready, which could be implemented at any time, anywhere, which needs upon to do so when it arises. Such emergency plans must be printed up in a guide which may be made available to all staff and personnel. Preparation consists of people, relatives, peoples, force, telling, special needs. This identification is directed in the event of an adversity and maximum on ways to meet those wants by growing cognizance, creating strategy, gaining physical materials such as food, water and well-being related items, and recognizing lodging selections. Ideally, personal readiness builds answering capacity, aiding people to meet their own requirements without the backing of their peripheral funds. Strategies, plans and research activities steered past to an affair allow for a more resourceful use of the funds post-event and results in saving resources, assets and lives. The third R is the response. It is regarded as the major factor in the event of a crisis. According to Baker, a calamity response includes the post-event actions intended to edge damage of life and assets, supporting inhabitants in retrieval, a pre-event level of working, a contingency plan which is seen developed by the organizations in the readiness stage would be of no use if it is not being implemented timely. It is regarded that if any incident caused by a natural or human, the first hour after such happening is crucial. However, the intensity of response differs significantly. Nevertheless, is the direct proportion to the scale of tragedy, physical and biological susceptibility of the area, and the accessibility of the basic resources like food or shelter. An immediate response center should be established on assisting the crisis interfering facility and steadying the public. The response also includes communication elements which are a part of it. During this phase, the organizations or the destinations must take effective steps in carrying the communications methods effectively. This includes communicating with the media, government authorities, hospitals, morgues, investigation agencies, etc. Preventive steps should be taken in creating multiple sources of communication or circulation of information. Creating multiple sources of communication and information sharing would lead to confusion, which will further complex the situation. The general public oftentimes assumes the response times and actions with extensive stage work that befalls in the last stage, that is the recovery. The organization or the destinations must appoint a single spokesperson from their side through which every information should be passed on to the general public. The fourth R that we are referring to is the recovery. It is an important aspect of managing the crisis which results after the incident has taken place and now it is over. That is after the response. However, retrieval actions usually obtain consideration in the coverage of media and broadcasting, yet such actions could take months or years. after the event to get completed, reliant on the level of damage to life and property. The recovery period embraces the assessment of the risk and the dangers by various government and the private authorities, subsequent in strategies for moderation, or it encompasses activities undertaken in order to reduce the consequence of the forthcoming crisis. Baker stated that the authorities must take appropriate steps and measures in view to restore damages, vulnerabilities caused by the disaster to restore the communities involved in it, as recovery and mitigation go hand in hand, that is simultaneously. Based on the same methodology, in the year 2013, National Response Framework, that is NRF-FEMA, also introduced 5 areas of the cycle including prevention, preparedness, responses, recovery and mitigation. These areas which have been identified by NRF has been identified as the 4 R's concept given by the PATA in 2003. Student, this module explains about the crisis and the importance of crisis management in the tourism industry. The term of crisis is presently well acknowledged and tourism management. A crisis, as we all know, is an event or a set of situations which can severely compromise or damage the marketability and the reputation of the tourism business, its brand or the entire tourism destination region as a whole. The crisis, as we all know, is an unexpected, unforeseen incident leading to foremost turbulence amid the people. In other words, it can also be defined as a state of emergency which disrupts the people and results into the volatility of the sector or the environment. The crisis affects the specific person, group, association or the society on the whole. According to Holstein, in crisis is characterized by surprise, a high threat to critical values and a short decision time. PATA in 2003 introduced the concept of 4 R of crisis management in a crisis awareness document named as crisis. It won't happen to us. Expect the unexpected and be prepared. PATA has explained the crisis management in 4 steps, that is the reduction, readiness, response and recovery, which is the essence of this module. Students, thanks for being with us during this module. We will meet again for the next module.